All right, today we're doing a really deep forensic dive into just two verses from the Qur'an, verses 8 and 9 of Surah Al-Aʿrāf. We're going to be working from a detailed academic commentary to really unpack these incredibly powerful ideas about divine judgment, what the scale on that day truly is, and what truth actually means when everything is laid bare. So here's our roadmap. First, we'll lay the groundwork by looking at the core concepts, weight and truth. Then we'll explore the two paths that emerge from that, heavy versus light scales. From there, we'll dig into what the scale, or mizan, really is. We'll analyze the state of those who are considered losers, and we're going to wrap it all up with a really profound conclusion about the self as the ultimate scale.
Okay, so first things first, we have to start with the two most important words in this entire passage, wazn, which translates to weight or weighing, and haq, which means truth or reality. Seriously, everything else that we're about to discuss hinges on getting a really precise feel for what these two concepts mean in this context.
And here they are. These two lines are our entire focus. Every single idea we're exploring today is just an attempt to unpack the incredible density of meaning that's packed right in here. It starts with, and the weighing on that day is the truth, and then it immediately flows into the consequences of that very weighing.
This first part is the absolute key to everything. Now, notice what it says and what it doesn't say. It doesn't say the weighing is fair or done with truth. It makes a statement of identity. The weighing is truth. It's a one-to-one equation. And our source material is really clear on this. Right off the bat, we've got to completely ditch that mental image of a physical scale with 2 pounds. That's not what's being talked about here.
So what does al-wazn actually mean here? Well, the source explains that it's not the act of weighing something that already has value. No, al-wazn is the value itself. It's the standard, the criterion. It is the absolute unchanging measure by which every single thing is going to be evaluated.
And what is that ultimate standard? The verse tells us point blank, al-haq, the truth. We're talking about pure, unadulterated, absolute reality itself. So you see, haq isn't some item you place on a scale to see how much it weighs. Haq is the scale.
You know, this one shift in understanding changes everything about how we picture the Day of Judgment. It's not that our actions and beliefs are placed in some kind of divine device to see what they're worth. Instead, they are held up against the blinding light of absolute truth to see if they have any substance, any reality to them whatsoever. So how does this actually play out for people? Well, the verses immediately use this standard of truth to split all of humanity into two, and only two, very distinct groups. It all depends on how they measure up. On one side, you have those whose scales are heavy. This means their lives, their beliefs, their actions, they all have a real substance and weight because they actually align with al-haq, with reality. These are the successful. And on the other side, you have those whose scales are light. Their lives are built on falsehood, on batil, which by its very nature is empty, hollow, and has no substance at all. So what gives a scale its weight? The commentary is clear. It's not just about racking up good deeds. It starts with a foundation of true belief. The deeds have to flow from that belief, and ultimately, it's about a whole personality, a whole life that is aligned with truth. The source even provides a powerful example, saying a figure like Imam Hussein is the ultimate personification of a heavy scale, someone whose very being becomes a standard of truth. And on the flip side, what makes a scale light? Well, it's an emptiness of truth. This could come from just flat-out denial of God's signs or from living a life built on falsehood. And the commentary really stresses this point. Even actions that look good on the outside, philanthropic acts, things like that, are completely weightless if they don't have that foundation of faith. In the end, they're insubstantial, like scattered dust. And this idea is powerfully backed up by another verse from Surah Al-Kahf. It says, for those who reject the truth, whose life's work was fundamentally misguided, God says we will not assign to them any weight. It's not just that their scale is light, it's that their entire existence amounts to a zero when measured against reality. It has no value. Okay, so this brings us to a really critical theological question that our source material dives right into. If the mizan, the scale, isn't a physical thing, then what in the world is it? The commentary explores this from a few fascinating angles. So the first clue is actually a linguistic puzzle. The verse says, those whose scales, plural, are heavy, not scale, singular. But wait a minute. If the standard is the one, singular truth, al-haq, why does the Quran use the plural form, mawazin? The commentary gives us three main possibilities. 1, scales could just be referring to all the many different things being evaluated, every belief, every action. 2, and this one is much deeper, the scales could actually be the weighers themselves, the multiple human exemplars of truth, like the prophets and the imams. And 3, it could refer to the many facets of the one truth, like God's justice, his mercy, his knowledge, and a person is measured against all these different aspects. Now, that second interpretation is just incredibly powerful. It suggests the scales aren't abstract ideas, but living, breathing realities. The mizan is the perfected human being. Think about that. Your life, my life, our character, it's all weighed by comparing it to the standard set by figures like the prophets. They are the scales of justice. All right, let's shift our focus for a moment to that second group, the ones whose scales are light. The Quran uses some very specific, very chilling language to describe their fate. So here's the full text from the verse. It says, they are those who have lost their souls, and it gives a very precise reason, because they were unjust toward our signs. We really have to break this down. What does it mean to lose your soul, and what is this injustice it's talking about? The source explains this as the ultimate form of bankruptcy. It's not like losing a possession or some money. It's losing yourself. Imagine your life, your potential, your soul is the only capital you truly have. To lose your soul means showing up on the day of judgment, having completely squandered the very essence of your being. There's nothing left. And the root cause is this act of dhulm, or injustice. But what kind of injustice? The source clarifies it's not primarily about hurting other people. The fundamental injustice here is against the signs of God. By denying reality, by rejecting truth, they end up committing the greatest injustice against their own souls, which are actually created with a natural ability, an instinct, to recognize that very truth. The commentary also lays out this critical distinction. You see, for a believer, even one who sins, their deeds are weighed because the foundation of faith is there. But for someone who denies the foundation itself, their good deeds, no matter how great they look, have no root in truth. They carry no weight. So the only possible outcome is total loss. And all of this, all these layers of meaning, they're all building to what is easily the most profound and personal argument in the entire analysis. We said this scale is truth, that it can be embodied by people, but the source takes it one final, incredible step inward. And there it is, the most precise, the most intimate understanding is that the scale of judgment isn't some external tool that God uses on us. It's an internal reality within every one of us. The mizan is your own self. So, how does that work? Well, the argument goes like this. The human soul, our fitra, is created in perfect sync with truth. A life of faith and good actions nourishes that soul, making it substantial, heavy, and true to its original design. But a life of denial and falsehood starves and corrupts it, making it light, hollow, and completely disconnected from its own reality. So you see, on the day of judgment, judgment is just revealing what you've made of your soul. You don't step onto a scale, you are the scale. And this isn't just an interpretation pulled from thin air. It's rooted right there in the Quran itself. This verse from Surah Al-Qiyamah says it so clearly. On that day, a person will see with perfect clarity and will be a witness against their own self. You don't need an external accuser when your own soul testifies against you. And this brings us to this powerful, practical tradition from Imam Ali that just perfectly applies this whole concept. It's a direct command. O servants of God, weigh your own souls before you are weighed. Don't wait for some future event. The act of judgment is something you're supposed to be doing right here, right now. So the real call to action here is to make judgment a continuous, personal process, the practice of muhasabah, or self-accountability. We are being urged to weigh ourselves constantly, to measure our own actions and beliefs against that standard of truth. If we do that, the final judgment isn't some terrifying surprise, it's just the final, public unveiling of a lifetime of private weighing. So we come full circle. The ultimate injustice, that zulm, is ultimately an act against your own soul. By rejecting the signs of truth out there in the world, you're actually just rejecting the truth that's hardwired into your own being. It's the deepest form of self-betrayal. And so this entire deep forensic analysis leaves us with this one incredibly personal question. If judgment isn't something that just happens to us, but something that we are, If our own self is the very scale that we are building or breaking with every single choice we make, what does that mean for our responsibility? Not in some far-off future, but right here in this very moment.